So there was a recent video, a couple of videos put up on YouTube here as we continue to evolve with Games Workshop, not only with Warhammer Plus, which again I'm back and forth on. I'm just trying to figure out what the heck is the plan with Games Workshop. I'm just trying to plan out like 40K, in Age of Sigmar 2 to a lesser extent, just because I'm not in that ecosystem in that game. What the heck is going on in exploring this? There's been a number of very, very interesting points made that states that looks at the idea that Games Workshop wants out of the tabletop business. And if you look at their actions, I kind of have to agree. They've been shutting down YouTube channels. They've shut down fan content. They're moving on Patreon. That's all I'll leave about with that. They've disregarded the fans. Well, that's certainly nothing new over time. But this shift, besides the fact that they've been pumping FOMO and that they've been doing limited releases, the push has been to, I believe, a multimedia company. And Warhammer Plus is kind of the test run for that, with the idea of getting out of physical or making the physical boutique. All right, so from that perspective, right now, the model of Games Workshop is they sell models. The rules for 40K, and we're just looking at this from a 40K perspective, but certainly it exists for AOS. The rules for 40K are just an excuse to play with your models. You can homebrew them. You can change them. They give you a structure. And on a side note, I do love tournament play. I've made a lot of friends. I play in 40K tournaments. Not as much now, but things are starting to open up given the world situation. And I plan to jump back in on those events. But for me, 40K has been the narrative. It's been getting together and experimenting with the rules. So I never really had a problem with the fact that Games Workshop doesn't play test their rules and they're not balanced, because we're kind of making stuff up as we go along. But I realize that's not everyone's gaming group. What that means is how they present the rules. If I take my opinion out of it, it's not a game company. It's not like Dungeons and Dragons where D&D are the rules. Everything else, the miniatures, the dice, the tokens, the maps, that's bolted on. Flip that. For Games Workshop, it's here's the miniatures. Everything else is an excuse to use them. The rules, the supplements, the books. The challenge with that is I see them looking and saying, we're going to continue to sell the miniatures, but we're going to make them limited release. We're going to jack the prices up. They're kind of going to be somewhere in between playing and collecting. I mean, maybe they're going to become like the Kingdom Death Monster of board games. So branching out from that, I think with the current disruption in the world, what it's shown is distribution, supply trains, keeping physical product, shipping it, that can easily be disrupted. And that's going to increase in cost, where if you have digital, if you have multimedia, if you become a media company, the cost for physical is non-existent. Now, yes, you have infrastructure, you have employees, you have animators, but I just see them pushing out more and more to grow their digital and their multimedia empire and then just license it out to everybody. I mean, look, I'm no prophet of Zinch, but could it happen where Games Workshop partners up with Disney and they do a proper 40K type movie or they kind of Disneyfy it and sell that, and now you have that franchise going, and it's like, 40K The Emperor 1, 40K The Emperor Returns, 40K Wrath of the Emperor, and just milking that forever? Like, it could be, and that's very, very attractive for both parties, because that reach and that distribution fits with the internet age, fits with the age of apps, fits with streaming. More and more I see that shift. So that's how it seems to be acting. That's how it seems to be acting. Agree or disagree on that? I'll just leave it at this point. All this could be because Games Workshop is so siloed and really doesn't interface with the fans. This could just, and I could be wrong, we'll see. I'll admit up to that. It could just be, look, we're going to launch Warhammer Plus and we have no idea what we're doing. So we're just going to try and shut down, control, and micromanage everything with relation to that. And then from that perspective moving forward, maybe things will loosen up. Maybe things will go back to the new normal with how Games Workshop runs things. The challenge with that, if they do it, and it doesn't look like that if you really look at their terms of service, basically you can't Warhammer anything without their approval, and Warhammer is not for everyone, as we're finding out. Even if it does reverse and it goes back, the damage is done. You've alienated a lot of players. If you haven't alienated those players, they're looking and saying, I'm going to cut back a little bit on GW. And what I explored in the last video that I pushed up to the mailbag section on my channel here, I'm just seeing it locally. All of a sudden, 40K players are coming out of the woodwork and being like, hey, what's up, my Battletech friends? I'm jumping in on Battletech now. I'm either done with GW or I'm taking a break till they figure out what the heck is going on. I'm doing this Battletech thing. I mean, in the course of 2 weeks, we had our Battletech ecosystem grow incredibly. It's like absolutely insane. People contacting me, Fritz, I want to jump into Battletech. Do you know anybody in this area? I want to get started with this. I mean, that is all a direct result of Games Workshop taking action. It's going to be a crazy ride, and it's going to be interesting to see how these things play out in the next couple of months.